You're listening to Truth to Power Live with Dumisani Washington. Truth to Power Live with Dumisani Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, so great to be with you on this Sunday, October the 6th, one day before October 7th, the anniversary of the horrific attack the Hamas launched against the Israelis. We're going to talk about several different things, but I want to jump to this part of it right off the bat. Welcome, 4 p.m. Eastern. We're here every Sunday. Great to be with you. ttplive.com. I need to jump right into this because there's several different things we're going to talk about. If you can see the bullet points on whatever platform you're looking at, you can go to ttplive.com and see from where all the places that you can see it. Depending on where you are right now, you may not see this, the bullets, but one of the first things we need to talk about before we get into some of the other discussions like Dennis Prager, Candace Owens, the college stuff, Israel, America. I need to put this in context, first of all, for North Carolina, where I'm living now.
If ever step foot in these Appalachian Mountains and hiked them, we need you here. We need foot. We need people on foot. If you have ever hiked the Rocky Mountains, get here. We need you. We need people experiencing hiking. There's only a few ways to these people. It is through foot, horseback, or helicopter. Dirt bikes. ATVs, side-by-sides. If you have them and can get to East Tennessee or Western North Carolina, we need you. Do not listen to the news when they tell you that they don't want you, they don't need you. I'm telling you, I am here. I live here. I have been already. I'm telling you, we need you. We want you here. The hell with what FEMA says. The hell with what American Red Cross says. They're not here. I'm telling you, they're not here helping. It's been a week and they're not here. We need manpower. So if you are an experienced hiker, we need you in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. If you are experienced dirt backer, we need you. If you are experienced in ATVs, side-by-sides, four-wheelers, whatever, we need you. We cannot get automobiles up in there. Trucks is not an option. Cars is not an option. If you own private helicopters, we need you. If they threaten to arrest you, we got you as the American people. We need you. These people need saved. These bodies need to be brought down. It is not fair to these families that are looking for their missing loved ones right now, not to have closure. These bodies have got to be brought out of this mountain. You all got to understand, these towns smell like death. I've been down to the river. It smells like death. I've never in my life smelled that kind of death. I've smelled a body that was burnt, but it's a different kind of smell, and it's a smell I'll never forget. I have already seen bodies. I'm telling you, I've seen them from my own eyes. That is something I'm never going to forget, ever. But people's got to understand they're washing up on banks. This water has already reached Santee Cooper, South Carolina. Those people are not prepared for what they might possibly encounter, okay? There's a chance that bodies may wash up on their banks in Santee Cooper, South Carolina. They are trying to get them out of the water before they keep drifting. But there's so much we can do as American people because we don't have our military and it's not their fault. The administration won't release them to us. They won't sign the orders. Guys, we've got to get manpower over here. There is people in those mountains. They are finding them every day that are still alive and they've not had anything to eat or drink in a week. We need foot. People on foot. So please make this video go viral. You all done it before. Do it again. Share the crap out of this video, people. We need manpower. Don't listen to the news. Don't, because the news ain't telling the truth.
So that's one of multiple videos that I have seen, no doubt you as well, if you've been on social media, different people pleading for help. My wife, so we live in outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, in Union County, a couple hours away from Asheville and some of the other areas that were hit. We're up there going to northwestern North Carolina, and then where it borders a little bit on Tennessee as well, that area, and also rural. These are all rural areas, mostly Georgia as well, along with the heart-wrenching state of affairs, the dead bodies, dead children, dead adults, destroyed homes, businesses, and everything. Unfortunately, there is the political fighting, and it is not without some sort of context. So let me see if I can do this here. First of all, I want to show, I don't want to show, but I'm going to see if I can do this in some sort of way that makes sense here. There, you might see there on the screen. Hopefully you can see that there. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. This is an article that was in the New York Post a few days ago. And as you can see the title there, twin babies died alongside the mom. The youngest known Hurricane Helene victims. The quote that's there, I won't read from this article, but that quote is actually from the grandparents who had never yet met the new babies. Parents said, the grandparents said, I've never met our grandsons, these twin grandsons. The boys and the mom crushed within this. They were all killed. I believe they were on the Georgia side, if I'm not mistaken, of this. I told you in the rural areas. When I shared this particular article, I made a comment on my social media because of the fact that I had seen, unfortunately, along with the political stuff, also race games played. People who were jeering, laughing because those people in those rural areas were quote unquote white. I guess this also the implication they're quote unquote Republicans. And the first thing I said, that first of all, it's as if whoever the idiots were that were laughing, just evil and stupid, as if there are no black people in rural southern parts of the United States. And that wasn't the point wasn't so much they're black and white. The point that it didn't matter. So I'm saying, so the people were laughing because they thought they were quote unquote white. There's white people, there's black people, I'm sure the Hispanic people that are in the areas there, because it's a pretty vast area, though it's in the rural areas. But beyond that, laughing at these people who are suffering in this way. So you got the race games being played, and some of this is being stirred up by fake accounts. I know. Some, we talk about all the different banks of these fake accounts that people like places like China has, places like Iran has, places like Russia have. They continue to try to stir up all kinds of dissension and issues. We shared that to say that these people are suffering, and this is in real time. But the most politically driven part of it, obviously, for those who don't know already, is where FEMA is concerned, which is supposed to be the emergency aid from the federal government. There has been the only thing worse than the fact that FEMA's money has been largely spent, according to Mayorkas, who's over FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security, is the lying that has been going on about it. Oh, no, it's not this, not that. And so they've been trying to play different games. And there's an article, there's many of them that are out there. I want to show you this one. It's from the Federalist. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can put it up on here for you. I'm going to quote from it. This is a Federalist article on October the 1st, a few days ago. It's entitled Biden-Harris admin use FEMA disaster funding for illegal immigrants. But it gives you, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to use this quote. Biden-Harris, I'm reading the quote here. This is the first couple of paragraphs of the article. The Biden-Harris administration took more than $1 billion tax dollars that had been allocated to the agency responsible for American disaster relief and used it to offer services for illegal immigrants. It goes on, next paragraph. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, allocated nearly $364 million in the fiscal year 2023 and $650 million for the 2024 fiscal year to the, quote, Shelter and Services Program, end quote, to provide humanitarian services to non-citizen migrants, read illegal immigrants, following their release from the Department of Homeland Security, according to the government's website. So all this rigmarole and all this is fake news. And according to FEMA's own website, according to the federal government itself, they spent over $1 billion of FEMA's aid, or close to $1 billion of FEMA's money that is supposed to be used in situations like what's going on right now in North Carolina, in Tennessee, and in Georgia. They spent that aid on illegal immigrants. Now, for those of you who get in your feels about, oh, illegal immigrants are people too, that is not the issue. We're not talking about whether or not we should be humane to everyone. We should. What we are actually talking about is why the federal government had to, or even felt like it needed to spend nearly $1 billion of FEMA aid to people who were allowed to come into the country illegally. As of a couple of years ago, I don't know if this number has changed, America allows legal immigrants up to 1 million per year, higher than I believe than any other country in the developed world. I mean, literally, I believe it's the highest. If I'm not, somebody can check me on that and send me a note. But I believe America's legal immigration is about 1 million per year. My own daughter-in-law, who's a South African national, took several years for her to become a citizen. She's married and has kids and everything. And I've known people who've taken much longer. Some folks had a 12, 13-year journey at becoming citizens. So don't give me all of that about all the xenophobia and blah, 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 blah. We are a very compassionate nation, not a perfect nation by any stretch, but a compassionate nation. You're talking about people by the aid of this administration and others, unfortunately, who were jumped to the head of the line. Unfortunately, some of them, not most of them, but some of them in terms of being criminals, some of them actually being terrorists. Yes, we actually know this. These are the numbers from the federal government itself. ICE, just about a week or so ago, published its numbers about the number of people who are in jail for homicide, in jail for rape. But this coming from, especially from Venezuela, but from other places. So the money gets spent on illegal immigrants, and here we have American citizens that are suffering. The video that I played was very, very specific. So my wife was checking, because we're in and out of town right now. We're not really set. We'll be back, later on in the week. We'll be headed out to California in a little bit. I'm headed to Miami in a minute. So there's a lot of running around that we're doing, but we'll have a space of time next week. We're here a bit longer. My wife intends to go up with some others and do some volunteering. Well, she checked with Samaritan's Purse and found out that they have an abundance of people. According to the Samaritan's Purse, they have an abundance of people doing certain things. My wife is going to go and help storage types of things, packing, essentials. And so apparently, from what we're finding out on the ground, there are volunteers that are helping do certain things that they can, and there seems to be an abundance of those. But there is a lack of help, or more help needed, from like the video I just shared with you, that folks who have access and training with helicopters, hiking, horseback, mule, ATVs, people who can get to these otherwise unreachable spots to help those that maybe still be alive, to get dead bodies that are there where these areas are. Some of them beginning, as the lady was saying, floating down. The way she was describing it, they'd be floating down the waterways there in North Carolina. I don't know all of them very well here. I'm still learning the terrain, being from California. But then they're going to be showing up very soon in South Carolina. And she was just horrified at the thought that, there'd be people, God forbid, even kids, who are going to see bodies. So this is real. Again, there's a couple other videos that I've seen. One gentleman in particular, it was so profanity laced, I couldn't share it on my thing. I'm not faulting him. He's angry, right? So he's whoo. And so I liked it on something, but I don't want to share that, especially on here on the show. But if you're on my X page, you'll see that in one of my replies, I've shared it. I believe Isaiah Washington actually shared it somewhere, and I liked it on his. He shared it on another post, and I was just kind of trying to get the word out as well. It's ugly and it's heart-wrenching. Not just the tragedy itself, what these people are going through, but then the political games that are being played, the race games that are being played. They're talking about the preference of certain aid that's supposed to be coming from the federal government based on what your LGBTQ status is, what your DEI. No joke. And for the folks who don't believe it, back during the whole COVID stuff, when the government was then as well exploiting people with misinformation and disinformation and all those things, they were prioritizing help based on whether or not you are somebody from a marginalized group and yada, 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 instead of just helping people who needed help, regardless of their skin color or their religion or any other silliness or sexual preference, any of those things. They literally had these things in which there was a hierarchy. You got the aid or you got the help based on what demographic you were from. Man, straight madness, foolishness. And this seems to be what's impacting some of what's happening now when it comes to the people. And I guess I'm so sorry, everyone. I had this on here and I didn't realize I didn't have this on here anymore. And hide, boom, there we go. All right. So forgive me. I've had that on there for a long time in terms of that I'm still learning how to navigate all my own stuff. So yes, it is heart-wrenching to see what's happening, to hear these stories, but we are sharing them because the people, as even that the lady that you saw making the plea, so that people will know. And she straight up said, she said, don't listen to the news, meaning that the media is telling you it's all good, there's no problems and all, and they're trying to tell you it's fake news. They're lying. She said, they're lying. I'm here. And many of those videos have gone out. So thank God that the people have been able to get those videos out, and let's all share them, regardless to what our political background is, so that the people can get the help. And again, I saw a couple other videos too. Some guys with the big, the vehicles, and they were actually putting together one of these big bulldozer types of things. And so yeah, there's response that's happening. Some people are trying to respond, and there's many stories about the government stopping them, military trained individuals who are going to bring their helicopters and everything, and they're going through all kinds of stuff. That's one thing the lady said. If the law enforcement tries to stop you, we got your back. Why are you having to fight law enforcement? Where is the Army Corps of Engineers? I mean, where is the National Guard, right? Where is some sort of the military that actually comes in and is supposed to be taking care of this? The Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, I saw one of his videos the other day, and he was lamenting the fact that the current governor, I believe, Roy, can't remember last, Chip Roy, I'm saying it right. Or am I saying, please give me if I'm saying the name wrong. I'm kind of doing that off the cuff here with that part of it, that section of it. He said they should be coming together. They should be making these statements together. But, you know, politics has them not doing that. And it's a tragedy, right? And here it is that we are watching this unfold, praying for these people, praying for the workers, all of those things. And even while in some of the Israel things that we do, preparing to observe the 1-year anniversary of other people who were just attacked. This was a terrorist attack, obviously, where Israel is concerned, Hamas and the other connections to Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran. Just really, really, it's a difficult time. It's amazing that for our Jewish brothers and sisters, this is Zeman Simcha, right? The season of our joy. And in the midst of a time that is supposed to be joyful, for so many, it is so difficult here. But I can say this as a pastor and as a man of God, that we do it by faith. I've been in these situations in that, thank God, not a terrorist situation like that, not like our brothers and sisters, whether in Israel or Nigeria or Iran, that they've been dealing with, but in very low times, at a time when we're supposed to be rejoicing. And as I've shared with congregations in the past and everything, I've just said to God, I have to trust you, right? I'm not feeling it, but I know that you're with me. I'm not wanting to rejoice, but I know, like Nehemiah told the people, the joy of the Lord is your strength. So God, help me. And those basic prayers like that, I can just kind of share that with you, have helped me in situations where the circumstances themselves just really, really heavy, right? Just heavy. I mean, deaths in family, sicknesses, disasters like what's going on up there in North Carolina and Georgia and in Tennessee, economic woes. There could be any number of things, marital problems, family problems, children, parents, all kinds of different things can beset us. But for those of us, and I'm speaking now specifically to people of faith, you Christians, you Jewish people, we hold on to God. We hold on to his word in as much as we possibly can, even when we feel that there's no strength left in us. And then we trust him. We trust him to carry us. We trust him. We tell him in our own way, this is overwhelming. I feel like it's just waves and waves of difficult circumstances, ways and ways of trials and tribulations. And God, I need your help. I can tell you that I've had to pray those types of prayers, and he's been a faithful God in the midst of that. And so, yeah, so prayers for all of you up there in the North Carolina. As I was getting ready to log on, one of our friends, Monica Buckley. Monica, is that your last name? I'm sorry. She's we met her at one of the Israel events that we had last year down here in this North and South Carolina area. She was actually on her way delivering things, going to the Chabad there in the Asheville area. So shout out to you, Monica, to the Chabadniks there, the rabbis, the people who are everybody's pulling together, right? There's a lot of pulling together, which is the positive part of a tragic situation, as I was sharing with the family. In the midst of the tragedy, in the midst of the chaos and the confusion, what there also is light. There will be people who will step up. There'll be people who will step up in ways that they didn't know they could step up. There was something inside of them that they would never been able to tap into had that very bad situation never happened. Again, so we don't rejoice in the bad. We don't think it's a good thing at all. But at the same time, we look for the light in the midst of the darkness. And so part of what we are seeing is that there are people who are coming together in the midst of what's not happening. They're coming and bringing all that they can and helping and ministering to needs. And so blessings for all of you who are there. Again, my wife is looking forward to going up with some others sometime next week to help. Again, and we're not able to do it now only because we're in and out of town, so we're not set right here in Charlotte just yet because we're having to do different things. So again, blessings for all of you and God's strength for all of you who are helping with what's going on up there with the victims of Hurricane Helene. All right, so I wanted to share that first of all. Let's get into this next thing here too. All of these things are important. It's not like these are done in order of priority, but they're just done in some sort of order so that we can have some sort of, instead of like randomly, which I can do random, but I want to make sure that we have some sort of order for this. All right, so Dennis Prager wrote a very, very long letter to Candace Owens. If you haven't checked it out already, it's on the internet. I'm going to share a little clip of it for you, or a little excerpt of it for you. But apparently, it was dated the beginning of September. And if you go on, PragerU.com, or if you just Google or do any type of search of Dennis Prager, Candace Owens, or Dennis Prager's letter to Candace Owens, it's available. It's out there. There on the website itself, it has the first few pages, but it's about a 17-page letter. So there's a link for the PDF, for the entire PDF. You can click on that. If you've done it for the first time, they might ask for your email address. So if you want to read the whole thing, I'm letting you know it's there. He wrote it to Candace, apparently, and I don't know this personally. I just know I know Dennis Prager. I was on his show a few weeks ago and everything, but we didn't discuss this, right? It's not a situation where we're very close and we sat down, we had a long talk about Candace. It was just, I happened to see him, and it's clear that these things have been weighing on their heart. So he wrote a private letter to Candace, expressing his concern for what is just Candace. He didn't say this to me. All three of her anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, terrorist apologist. Just we'll get into a little bit. Joseph Goebbels, did he really, cut people in half? Just the whole borderline Holocaust denial, just really off the rails, right? So obviously Dennis Prager is a Jewish man. They've known each other for a while. And I encourage you, if you want to know, read the letter. You can feel his pain in it, right? But he's classic Dennis Prager. That there's no railing and yelling and name calling or even accusation. He just basically happened to say, call stuff what it is. He obviously was a private letter, but he was only going to make it public if he did not get a response. He got an initial response from Candace when he sent the whole letter. She never really responded again. Weeks went by. So I'm assuming, again, he didn't tell me this directly, I'm assuming that he decided, well, it's been long enough. She hasn't really replied. So I'm going to make this public because I'm sure people are asking him, hey, Candace, not only are you Jewish, Dennis Prager, now you're a leader in the Jewish community, but you and Candace have a relationship. What do you have to say about all of her anti-Jewish, anti-Israel stuff? And then he did address it. So let me see if I can do it here. I'm going to share with you a quote, a specific quote, because again, one of the reasons why it's a long letter is because Dennis, he says this in the letter. All this, what I'm saying, it's in there. So I don't want to rehash it. I want you to read it yourself if you want to. He takes the time to go basically to every one of her podcasts. I don't know if he did also her tweets or X posts, and address virtually everything that she said about Israel and about Jews. Stuff that they said was completely false, he called it that. Stuff that was true that needed context, he called it that. And then stuff that was true and just wrong, right? He talked about the USS Liberty, how the Israelis shot down that submarine. What happened with that? He addresses that, and he talks about his pain with that. And he's classic Dennis Prager, right? He's out. He says what he's thinking, right? He clearly says what he's thinking. So it's very, very good in that sense that I believe it's thorough. If Candace responds, we'll know. That's not why I'm here in terms of her response. I'm just letting you know he said this part. But I do want to share this specific portion here that's going to lead us to this last thing. So let me see if I can do it in a way that's not going to mess everything up this time. I'm reading now. This is a direct quote from Dennis Prager's letter to Candace Owens. This is just 2 little paragraphs on what I believe is a 17-page letter. And you'll see where I'm going. Quote, the notion that people who criticize Israel essentially risk their lives is simply untrue. Something that Candace has said multiple times. You talk about Israel, your life will be in danger. She said, my life is in danger. She literally said these things. The internet is flooded with anti-Israel rhetoric. Academia is dominated by professors who are virulently anti-Israel. Has one individual been dealt with violently, let alone killed? A rhetorical question. Of course, the answer to that is no. He goes on to say, ironically, there is a group about whom expressing strong criticism means risking your life, Muslims. But you never mention that. You acknowledge that you don't talk about Islam, which is strange. If you care about mass killing, especially of Christians, the only group killing a large number of Christians today is Muslims. Again, classic Dennis Prager, right to the point. He says to Candace, you are accusing Israel or the Zionists of placing people's lives in danger who dare speak out about Israel. That's completely, patently false. You can just go on the same X that Candace is on all the time, and you see all kinds of nasty, bad, untrue, slanderous, whatever things about Israel, right? The Jews this, the Jews that, Israel, the Zionists. So clearly it's not true. And you don't have to be on X, whoever you are. You can be a Ilhan Omar said nasty stuff about Israel. Rashida Tlaib, nasty stuff about it. That's going to happen to you. That's free speech. It's the First Amendment rights. He said, however, and he had said this, I hadn't seen it myself, but a couple other people let me know. I guess Candace at some point had said she's not going to talk about Islam. And then said something about September 11th and, 2001 and how unfair Muslims were treated and that type of thing. And he says in his letters, you saw there, it's strange that you won't talk about Islam, but you claim, now my words, he didn't say it this way, to be concerned about the mass killing of Christians. And where that's happening is in places like Nigeria, Sudan, Mauritania, where there's also slaves and being slaughtered. That's happening in Syria. That's happening in Iraq. That's happening. The Christians are being persecuted, imprisoned and everything in Iran, and so on and so forth. Not in Israel. It's not happening in Israel at all. There's freedom of religion in Israel, and the Christian population is growing in Israel. It's one of the fastest growing in that area, except for Iran. It's the fastest at all in the world. The fastest growing Christian population is the Islamic Republic of Iran, something that I'm sure is just chapping the hide of the Ayatollahs. I've made this point again, and we're gonna have to repeat it because we're gonna connect this to a couple other things. What right-wing anti-Semites like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, who are the kind of the drum major and drum majorette for this, what seems to be growing movement. Again, we don't have the data on it just yet. Right-wingers, conservatives, or even libertarians who find themselves criticizing or even attacking Israel as if the only foreign policy that the United States has is with Israel. Some of them become experts in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict when they absolutely know nothing about what they're talking about, or just shilling and lying. Again, it's amazing. Last week, episode 16, we dealt with Ta-Nehisi Coates' new book in which he comes and attacks Israel, right? The leftists have been doing that for decades, right? So Ta-Nehisi Coates, different people have written about it themselves. In Africa Israel Weekly on our Substack with the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, for whom I serve as the CEO. We put out an article about it. You can go to ibsi.substack.com. And then I've seen others as well. Coleman Hughes, writing for, I believe, the Free Press, he did a piece on it. Several others have done them. He's gotten some pushback, at least in terms of the social media. But it's amazing, and this is the part I want to connect for you all. I need to connect this dot, right? And I can feel myself having to slow myself down in my regular. I'm always a fast, but from the beginning, I knew with what's happening, it was going to kind of feel my way more slowly here. Whether the Jew haters and Israel haters on the right or the left, other than Jew hatred, anti-Semitism, Israel hatred, the whole anti-Zionist, other than having that clearly in common, there is also something they have indirectly in common, and that is covering for radical Islam. Candace, apparently, according to Dennis Prager's letter, has said she will not deal with Islam. Now, remember, hers is Christ is king. Oh, how Christians are being treated. I'm so concerned. She even said this. I'm Christian persecution, Christ is king. So Christians are being slaughtered by the thousands. Nigeria alone sees some 5,000 to 6,000 Christians killed by groups like the Fulani herdsmen and Boko Haram per year. Silence about that. Silence about the Christians being enslaved and slaughtered in South Sudan or in Sudan. And South Sudan had to actually secede, they had to make another state because of all the genocide that's been going on. Silence on the Christians in China. Silence on the Christians in Iran. Silence on the Christians in Pakistan. No, silence. Okay, right. So what that effectively does, among many other things, and there's many, many different strands here, but we're going to stay focused here for a moment on this thing here. What it does is run cover for the Islamist genocide, enslavement, and even the subversion that's happening here in the States. Okay. Unlike the leftists who have no love for America, the ones on the right, like the Tucker Carlsons and the Candace Owens, claim to love America. Yet, isn't it amazing that not only do they not talk about Christians dying in the Islamic parts of the world, they also don't talk about the disinformation spewing forth from the billions of dollars from places like Qatar on our college campuses. They don't talk about the Hamas encampments. They don't talk about what the attacks of Jews on the campuses. They don't even talk about these Hamas supporters burning American flags. Nothing. It's as if there is some sort of agreement that they have with someone that they'll talk all kinds of nonsense about Israel. Tucker will even shill for Vladimir Putin. Oh, these restaurants are the best. Oh, these grocery stores. Oh, Russia has the best, whatever. Idiot, right? but nothing about what's going on in our country when it comes to Muslim Brotherhood influence on our campuses, on our in our halls of justice, in our government. Nothing about any of those things. What it serves to do is not only give cover to, and what was that word? I was telling my wife, there's a word that I kept forgetting that it actually was. It was, and I don't have my other, let me see here if I can check it. There's a specific word. It's actually the one that I'll use the most in the next article that's coming up. I'll come back to it in a second if I can. But for some reason, it escapes me at certain times, but it's a certain type of subversion word. There's a certain amount of, I'll get the word, it'll have to come back to me. Capture, there it is. Capture. They don't address that part of it, how our institutions have been captured by a red-green alliance. They'll give a nod to the communist part, right? They'll say, okay, but that, which is the red part, but the green part, the Islamist part, nope. Their code of silence there, meaning these right-wing Jew haters like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, their code of silence when it comes to radical Islam is as lock-clad as Ilhan Omar's. It's as if they're reading from a similar playbook and will not deal with what is clearly a national security threat. They love America, but not enough to speak truth to power when it comes to the Muslim Brotherhood. Isn't that amazing? Yes, and it's on both sides of the aisle. Both sides of the leftists, they can talk about, they love them some radical Islamists because they hate Jews, they hate Israel, and hate America. So they just have that all together. They just loving on each other, kiss, 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 kisses. But on the right side, oh yeah, Jews. And then when you bring up the Islam part, it's as if it doesn't exist. They'll talk talking points about what Israel is doing to the Christians in Gaza. Israel is not attacking Christians in Gaza. Israel is attacking Hamas. Oh, Lebanon is a Christian country, and Israel now destroying Lebanon. Israel is going after Hezbollah, and the liars on the left and the right are united on what Israel is doing to the Christians, really. But we're not talking about what Hamas does to the Christians, what Hezbollah does to the Christians, what the Islamic Republic of Iran does. Nope, it's as if that doesn't exist. They are serving as apologists, and it's concerning, not because of them. Who cares about them? We're talking about the effect of what's happening because of the actual spiritual deception, the capture here. So, I shared last week about the article. Well, that was the Tahadishi Coates article. So there's another one that was written for Africa Israel Weekly, which is part of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. And I'm not going to read a quote from it, but I'm going to talk about it here. So you can go here. Let me see. Can you go here? Yeah, boom. There you go. The title of this is going to be a 3-part series. Part 1 is entitled, well, they're all entitled the same thing. It's just different subtitles. Why the U.S.-Israel relationship is a matter of America's national security. This is part 1. Part 1 was published last week. You can go again to ibsi.substack.com and you can check that out. Part 2 will publish this week, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. Tuesday or Wednesday, you'll have part 2 of that article. That article, which again, I didn't come prepared to actually read anything in it. I mean, direct quotes. I'll reference here in a second here. And again, ibsi.substack.com. And for some reason, I'm thinking I need to share it one more time. Boom. This is what it looks like right there. Why the U.S.-Israel relationship is a matter of America's national security. Again, go to ibsi.substack.com. Or you go to ibsi.org, and you can also see, Africa Israel Weekly is the name of the Substack. You can click on that as well. So, capture, which will be the next part 2. In the article, I and IPSI make the case that the fighting the Jew hatred on the college campuses and in our public square is not simply something that we need to do on behalf of our Jewish brothers and sisters, which is true. Any of our citizens are going to be attacked that way. I don't care what ethnicity they are. And anti-Semitism is the highest percentage in terms of hatred, the type of ethnic hatred and attacks that are happening. It's happened for a while, and it's really, really spiked, obviously, since October the 7th. But again, how this always happens spiritually, First the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. That persecution that's going on with our Jewish brothers and sisters, again, in a quick minute, is going to be turned on Christians, and then it's going to also be turned on other Muslims who are not down with the whole jihadist thing. We have, as a nation, but particularly the leaders, have allowed this hatred for Israel, which is completely connected to for hatred for the West or hatred for the United States, to fester and grow for a number of decades. Now, the Soviet and then later on in the communist disinformation in our public square and our campuses, it's been present there since shortly after the Second World War. So this has been going on our campuses for a long time. But the Islamist part of it, those dates are more recent, last 30 years or so, on the campuses in this way, particularly with the Muslim Brotherhood and its affiliates. We've allowed it to fester, just like we said a couple of weeks ago in one of the episodes. We said that for our Jewish brothers and sisters after the Holocaust, it said never again. And for their Christian allies, we said not on our watch. But all that is happening in terms of the rise of Jew hatred, the things that led up to October 7th from our own administration, all of these things happened on our watch. So something's misfiring here. We stand with Israel and the Jewish people, and we stand against anti-Semitism, but it's growing, it's rising. At the very least, it would cause for reflection. I've taught my children, and I've done speaking on these things before, preaching and different sermons and lectures and everything, that reflection is the key to personal growth. Meaning, my ability and willingness to ask myself questions, to look at my life, to look at a behavior, right? To have the kind of conversation internally that says, okay, hey, what are you doing? Why did you do that? Okay, where are you right now? Okay, is this what's happening? And this happens also in terms of prayer and meditation. David said to God, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me into the way of everlasting." Right? David also said, "Purge me with hyssop, wash me, I'll be purer than snow." David was the master, not just in terms of a psalmist and the warrior, but in his prayer. He was a prayer warrior. David knew how to talk to God in an intimate way, and it instructs us even to this day. So a personal reflection is what is required for me in terms of any type of spiritual growth or maturation to go from point A to point B. I have to be able to ask myself some questions about where I am, what's going on, where I want to go as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a business leader, as a community leader, whatever my role is. The role that I play is secondary to who I am as an eternal soul. What's going on with me, what's going on in my heart and my mind. And I'm able to do that as I'm able to really examine myself and also open myself in prayer. God, like David said, search me, God. Need you to look at me, check a brother out. Let's have a talk. Let's go walk by the lake, by the stream. Let's go to a beach somewhere, go to a mountain somewhere. Me and God, we're gonna have some conversations. That has to happen in order, that reflection has to happen in order for there to be growth. Otherwise, I won't be able to recognize what's going on with me. In other words, give you a quick example. An example of a person who does not reflect, for example, one example, there's many, but one would be one who is so unaware of him or herself that even if someone close to them, family, friend, okay, you ever have that family member or friend who what a personality that they have, a trait that they have, is obvious to everyone but them? You can have 10 people sitting around the table and tell them, Jack, you tend to XYZ. No, I don't. Yeah, you do, Jack. And everybody around, Jack's wife, Jack's friend, Jack's best friend, Jack's golf buddy, Jack's rabbi, Jack's pastor, people who are close to Jack and love Jack all agree, Jack, you tend to do this. And Jack tell them you're all crazy. That's a person who generally does not reflect, because Jack doesn't have the ability to step back from himself and the defense of himself, even later on in the ensuing weeks and months, to go, maybe they have a point, right? That person does not reflect, so that even when a reflection of themselves is coming from trusted sources saying, Jack, you tend to do X, Y, Z, Jack's not hearing it. As a matter of fact, now Jack feels attacked. I'm not talking about from enemies who are coming against him. I'm saying, Jack, honey, Jack, my boy, Jack, my dog. Hey, man, just, between you and me, you tend to, no, that's not, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, that's a person that doesn't reflect. This is what, in general, the Christian community that supports Israel in the United States has not done. Has not done. I said this before. I'm making a point here. Has not done, particularly since October 7th, because Jew hatred is rising on our watch. Our campuses are a hot mess on our watch. There's all kinds of decrepit things coming out of this administration on our watch, and there's almost dead silence. Or just wave some Israeli flags and we stand with America, stand whatever, right? And billions of dollars to Iran, billions of dollars to Hamas, and all, and nothing, right? So the article talks about it being a national, the U.S.-Israel relationship being a matter of national security, because as the Jew hatred rises on our campuses and in our streets, which is also the Israel hatred, and the America hatred as they're burning American flags, and policies are coming out of this administration, suing people, Jewish people who live in Judea and Samaria, trying to bankrupt them, shutting down their bank account. All this stuff is happening, all because of settler violence, even when there's no settler violence to be spoken of. Why people who come out of the Students for Justice in Palestine are in sensitive areas and have been for a while. They graduate, go to come. They're in the White House. They're in the State Department. They're in the Pentagon. What's actually going on with that? Well, I want to. Do I have that one last quote thing? Yeah, no, I don't. Oh, yeah, that's right. I want to. This is a quote from Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, published a piece called Students for Justice in Palestine Unmasked, right? It was in 2018. It's one of many articles, studies, documentaries over the past 20 years that have been done that have explained to us what's really going on the campuses. Let me see if I can read it for you. Can I share it with you here? Yeah. This is a quote from Students for Justice in Palestine Unmasked. Again, you can go to jcpa.org and you can actually find this document there. Shout out to our friends Dan Diker and Tiersa and all of our friends at JCPA. Oh yeah, this is that weird one. I'm sorry, on the screen that does something strange, and I gotta see if I can move it. I may not be able to. Let's see here. I'm quoting, Students for Justice in Palestine is a byproduct of American Muslims for Palestine, AMP, an organization whose leaders were former members and supporters of Palestinian and Islamist terror organizations. You see that? They're telling you who formed SJP. That should be enough right there. We're going to keep going. AMP, American Muslim for Palestine, was founded in 2005 after three organizations, Kind Hearts, the Islamic Association of Palestine, and the Holy Land Foundation for Relief and Development, were implicated by the federal government between 2001 and 2011, 10 years for terror funding and linkages. Many of the leaders and top donors to these organizations were either jailed or deported for terror links. Some, and I'm sorry, I'm pausing there because where it says some, you can see it, but I can't see it at this very moment. Some, it says members who remained in the United States have since migrated to AMP. So they've gone from Students for Justice Palestine or from those other organizations to the American Muslims for Palestine. Last quote, part of the quote, numerous connections exist between AMP board members, employees, volunteers, keynote speakers, and Palestinian terror groups such as Hamas, the Islamist terror organization that governs the Gaza Strip. In some cases, AMP leaders and supporters have been implicated for fundraising for Hamas. Now, for those of you who for the very first time are hearing this, the connections between Students for Justice in Palestine and American Muslims for Palestine and terrorist organizations and individuals, good morning. I'm not trying to clown, but yes, this is this has been well known for the next group I'm about to address, for the people who've known it for decades. I said this in a tweet post. Let me say it right here on the show. When student groups like Students for Justice in Palestine, American Muslims for Palestine, or the Muslim Student Association, which all kind of come out of the same whole Muslim Brotherhood terror network. And again, you can get it yourself. We have all the receipts. None of this is new. When they began to infiltrate our campuses, which was about 20 years ago, give or take. I'm talking about as organizations. The Islamist ideology preceded that, but I'm talking about as groups, right? Hatem Bazian is the person who formally formed Students for Justice in Palestine, and that was also around the early 2000s, 2004, 2005. So you're talking about the last 20 years, these organized groups with ties to terrorist organizations on our campuses. That began about 20 years ago. Let me say it again, not the Jew hatred and Israel hatred and the Islamist mindset, but I'm talking about as these organizations within the format of student groups. This started about 20 years ago. I talked to you before about it. It's in a couple of these articles, how our dear friend Charles Jacobs, he and his team made an actual film entitled Columbia Unbecoming in 2004, warning everyone, starting with the Jewish leaders and everybody else, about the types of disinformation and the type of Israel hatred and Jew hatred that was actually being fomented on campuses 20 years ago. 20 years ago. The tactical mistake that was made by both Jewish and Christian groups was to then organize pro-Israel student groups to combat and to deal with the threat, the ideological threat that was coming from the pro-Palestine groups. It wasn't a tactical mistake in an obvious sense. In other words, it made sense, right? Here are student groups spousing off all kinds of pro-BDS, anti-Israel, Israel's committing genocide and down with Israel and the Zionists, and then becoming more and more radical in their rhetoric and also in their actions, to where we saw after October the 7th actually attacking Jews, accosting people who are pro-Israel, the whole thing, right? This was built up for a long period of time. It wasn't a mistake on an obvious way, because if there's students there that are spouting off these things, you should have other students who are pro-Israel. They talk about Israel and the right, would give the right information, talk about Israel-U.S. relationship, and there's the only democracy in the Middle East, and they make cherry tomatoes and whatever. Okay, well, fine. The problem wasn't that those anti-Israel student groups with ties to terrorist organizations should have been met with pro-Israel student groups. Student groups with ties to terrorist organizations should not be on college campuses in the United States of America. It was always a legal situation. At that point, when it started happening, what needed to happen was, in retrospect, both the Justice Department and the Education Department needed to be notified, and those groups, because of their ties to terrorist organizations, needed to be removed, and the schools that persisted in giving them charters needed to be taken to court. You had like a $50 billion endowment, like at places like Harvard, that has become one of the most rabid Jew-hating institutions in the United States. Yeah, absolutely. Go after that money. Guess what? What about free speech? See, okay, if it's a terrorist organization that is advocating violence, especially against an ethnic or religious group, there's no free speech for you to stand up on a college campus and say, I think the Zionists should die. It's been going on for a long time. The mistake made, and I'm not attributing something nefarious, and I'm talking about the pro-Israel group. I remember a couple weeks ago, if you saw the other episode, Daniel prayed a prayer of repentance that included himself. Daniel, Nehemiah. They didn't say, oh, those Israelites, those Jews are the ones God. But no, the men of God prayed and said, we have messed up. We have sinned. We are in exile. Right? So I was saying that before. We have failed the Jewish community. We have failed our nation. We, a collective we. Why? Because we did a tit for tat, when the reality of it was a Hamas representatives essentially on our campuses. I will never forget years ago, a prominent member of the pro-Israel community wanted to try to school me and tell me that there's no reason why the Muslim Brotherhood should not be allowed to organize and be formed as a political party in the United States. Give me all this blah, blah, blah about, free speech and freedom of assembly, and it just comes like they were testing us and they're listening to them. Yeah. And when they were done with the spiel, I said, now do the Klan. And he looked at me like they weren't, like, I guess they're the smartest person in the room. Because all the stuff they were talking was a bunch of DEI nonsense. Oh, the Muslim Brotherhood, which the person knows of the terrorist organization. Oh, but they should be able to, they're a political party, which they are. It was always formed as a political party back in 1928, but as a political party whose goal was the destruction of Zionism and the necessity of jihad. Bare words. I quoted out of In Ishmael's House, written by Sir Martin Gilbert. I quote his description of the origins of the Muslim Brotherhood in my book, Zionism in the Black Church. One of their very first public events was the dangers of Zionism and the necessity of jihad. Almost 100 years later, the Muslim Brotherhood, Allah's our way, and Quran is the whole thing, right? They're jihad. We're going to kill people who don't agree with us. That's what that means. And we got really cute with it. Now they got 501c status and all these different organizations. There's like a whole network. It was a tactical mistake to try to fight that type of Islamist fire on the campus with some sort of pro-Israel student fire. No, don't give me, come on, we're almost done here. This is not in any way bashing those pro-Israel students. They're amazing. I've had the privilege over the years of traveling to campuses across the country, meeting some amazing young men and women with great courage, great intellect, who have made the case for Israel, made a case for the Israel-U.S. relationship, brought in other speakers and done Holocaust survivors and Muslim supporters of Israel. I mean, they've done amazing work. I've had the privilege of watching some of it myself, seeing them, watching them come through school. Some of them are adults now and their families. And all that. I mean, this is in no way, in any way, disparaging those young people. Neither is disparaging the organizations who put those young people together and got the funds and set them up and set up their campus chapters and took them to Israel. Those are not bad things, people. It's not a bad thing to have that kind of information. Back in the day, before we got into this craziness of the Israel hatred, there used to just be clubs. Anybody remember? There was the Greek club. Now I'm talking about the sororities and fraternities. I'm talking about there was a Persian club, right? There's an Indian club. You had students would have some sort of cultural thing. The Black Student Union, before many of them got co-opted with the whole Marxist thing, were Black American students who came together because they wanted spaces to be able to do some things together in terms of African American observances, different cultural thing, gospel music. So you had those different things. Those aren't necessarily bad. Oh, that's the multiculturalism. You know what? It's nothing wrong with celebrating someone's culture as long as it's not attacking somebody else's. And as long as it's okay to celebrate America. Can we celebrate the founding fathers? Can we celebrate what Western civilization? Oh, no, that's bad. That's evil. We can celebrate everything else. See, that becomes the problem. So, one of the other articles, I thought about this, I didn't pull it up. If you go to ibsi.substack.com, there's a specific article that's in there about Dr. Tabia Lee, who was the head of the diversity in equity inclusion, that department at the university is a community college in De Anza. Thank you, God. De Anza Community College in Southern California, and I consider Dr. Lee a friend and a colleague. We've kind of collaborated on a couple of things. I think I'll be seeing her pretty soon. Shout out to Jennifer Richmond, some of the other ones who are doing the ed empowerment conferences that happening in Sacramento. I'll have more information about it this time. Wasn't even prepared to even share that with you. But anyway, I'm saying that she got fired. Dr. Tabia Lee got fired from her job as the leader of the diversity, equity, inclusion department, if you will. There's a specific title that she had, because she dared, among other things, check this out. Yes, she supported Israel. Yes, she supported the state of Israel and she supported Jewish students, but everybody. So she didn't single out the Jewish students to give them support. She wanted to celebrate Arabic heritage. She wanted to celebrate Indian heritage. And they told her, no, we are about deconstructing whiteness. We don't have time for all that. She was attempting to celebrate the different cultures that were there. People could learn. No, they didn't want to have anything to do with that. They only wanted her to come against whiteness. That's what I'm talking about. What Dr. Lee was doing was not a bad thing. Let's celebrate Jewish heritage, Arab heritage, Black American, or other African students that are here. Let's learn something about each other. This stuff is not bad, you all. Diversity, I know it's become a bad thing now in terms of the way the leftists have used it, but it's okay to come from different places and celebrate where those places are, where I came from, my family, my heritage, or whatever, and still celebrate the patchwork that is America, the freest nation in the history of the world, most prosperous one, and from people all over the world, with people from all over the world. So that's not what's been happening, unfortunately. And I know I'm already over time. I mean, the mistake made was attempting when pro-Israel student groups were formed to push back against the terrorist aligning student groups, it legitimized them. We were saying to the Hamas aligned groups on the campus, you have a right to be here. We were saying to them, you have a right to set this up as a globalized the Intifada, and we are going to fight you with real truth, and we're going to come to you. And no, under what circumstances would America allow chapters of the KKK to be on college campuses around the country? None. The NAACP, the ADL, and Dumisani, Washington, the Institute for Black Solidarity will be right there to shut down. Why? Because the KKK is a terrorist organization. It actually advocates violence to achieve its political goals. So why are we letting groups that are aligned with Hamas to be on the campus organizing? If it's a terrorist organization, why is anybody's name associated with SJP, Students for Justice of Palestine, American Muslims for American, as it is, AMP, the American Muslims for Palestine, the MSA, the Muslim Student Association? If any of those organizations are in any way connected to these terrorists and terrorist organizations, why are they on the campus? And they've been there for over 20 years. So we'll be making this case more, that if we're really going to fight anti-Semitism, we're really going to come against campus Jew hatred, we have to be honest. Remember I said personal growth is one that's of reflection. That's true in the individual and in the corporate. The same way an individual grows in maturity is the way a corporate body excels and ascends in its purposes, or it gets subverted. It gets, what's the word I kept forgetting again? Captured. And the next thing you know, this organization that was supposed to be fighting X is not only not fighting X, it's actually serving as an apologist for X. Because why? Because it's actually distracting you from what really needs to be happening. SJP is not the origin. It's not the source of the Jew hatred. It's just another conduit. The source is the billions of dollars from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia, from China. The source is how that money hires administrative staff and faculty to come in who have this bent of anti-Israel, anti-America. The source is the money and the terrorist networks that are actually connected to where the students are. So if you play whack-a-mole with the student groups, guess what? You shut down an SJP in one place, all due respect, Ron DeSantis. The terrorist groups are just going to form another one with some sort of lofty sounding name and continue on the same demonization of Israel, of Jews, and of America. And we've reached a critical mass here. There's much more to say, but I gotta go here in a second. And let me just say this last couple things here. First of all, The article, part 2 of the article, why the U.S.-Israel relationship is a matter of national security, that will actually be out again in a couple of days, but you could read the first one on ibsi.substack.com. The last thing is that God Say the Same, will be in Miami on tomorrow, October the 7th. The executive director of IBSI, Joshua Washington, my son, and one of our board members, my daughter-in-law, Olga, will be in Washington, D.C. in just a moment, and they'll be at a specific African-American event hosted by Alveda King. So they'll be there representing IBSI. They'll be praying for Israel. It is a Black Christian event that will be there. I wasn't able to go to that. I'll be going to Miami, where the President Trump, and also Miriam Adelson and others, they're actually putting on an event that is a commemoration of October the 7th. I got an invitation from a couple of other pastors, and we'll be going there representing the Christian community. If I have a chance, I'll say something to the President Trump about this. I doubt if I'll get a chance to, but if I do, I'll definitely talk about this some more. I want you to check that article out and tell me what you think about it as well. Again, I'll go to ibsi.org. I'm sorry, that too. ibsi.org. You can go to Africa Israel Weekly, or you go to ibsi.substack.com. For this show, you can go to ttplive.com. You can check it out when we do our live streaming. We have to update it a little bit because the radio stuff is still on there, but you can do the live streaming from there. But you can also click on where it says all episodes. You can see the podcast for all the episodes as well, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you doing that as well. It's been great to be with you, everyone. Looking forward to joining you on next Sunday, everyone. Blessings on you.
Truth to Power Live with Jimmy Sonny Washington.